In the vibrant world of being a movie fan today, finding which source to trust when it comes to movie recommendations is harder than ever. Should you listen to reviews, IMDb scores, social media, some random guy on the street? But one source has positioned itself as the true voice of movie fans everywhere: CinemaScore. But what is CinemaScore? And what is it actually telling us? I'll tell you right now on ScreenJunkies News. If you follow movie news at all, then you probably know the name CinemaScore. Their A through F grades of every major release have become part of the news cycle, sometimes when a movie gets good grades, but often when it gets terrible ones. We saw this just last year with Darren Aronofsky's Mother, which got an extremely rare F CinemaScore, and just last weekend when the critically acclaimed Hereditary was given a D+ from the audience. But there's more to a movie's CinemaScore than you might think. So let's break down what it really means. Now, to understand CinemaScore, it's important to know why it was founded. The concept is the brainchild of founder Ed Mintz, who in 1978 found himself displeased with a film called The Cheap Detective, written by Neil Simon. In 2009, Mintz told the LA Times, quote, "We went because the critics had given it good reviews and we all love Neil Simon, but we walked out going, what was that? That wasn't what we expected at all. It's a problem you still have today with movies like Funny People that just didn't deliver what people expected." The concept of audience expectation is critical to understanding what CinemaScore's grades mean, so keep that in mind. CinemaScore was initially a consumer guide, sharing its grades with various media outlets, but in the 90s, studios became interested and began partnering with the firm to get further information about the audiences seeing their movies, like age and gender demographics, reasons audiences saw the film, and their likelihood to buy the movie on home media. In the last decade, CinemaScore has grown in prominence as its scores are now regularly touted by both studios and movie news outlets as the voice of the people and a measure of how well a film has connected with its intended audience. So, how does CinemaScore work? Well, it's way less technical than you'd think. First of all, it's important to note that CinemaScore only tracks movies that receive wide releases, which today translates to 1,500 or more screens. There are currently CinemaScore teams stationed in about 25 large cities across the country, reportedly including Los Angeles, Dallas, Portland, St. Louis, and others. Each week, 5 of those cities are selected by CinemaScore as the test market for each new wide release. The polling staff in those cities then randomly selects one theater to use as their polling location. So, for each new release, the CinemaScore is based on the combined results from 5 randomly selected theaters across the country from 5 different cities in CinemaScore's nationwide network. Each audience member in a theater selected for CinemaScore is given a paper ballot like this one, which asks them to fold back tabs corresponding to their letter grade, gender, age range, and other information. CinemaScore estimates that 65% of moviegoers who are given a ballot end up turning it in, and that each CinemaScore is ultimately the result of 400 to 600 total ballots. Once the data is sent back to CinemaScore's headquarters in Las Vegas, they crunch the numbers and generate the film's final score, which they now announce on social media. More detailed information is also sent to the studios so they can assess what may have gone right or wrong with their latest release. A CinemaScore of A+, A-, B+, or B is considered great or at least good news for a film. A B- score is an indication that a film is in trouble. Anything in the C range is really bad news, and a D or an F is regarded as a sign that something has gone catastrophically wrong with audience reaction. Luckily for Hollywood, opening night crowds tend to be forgiving. Of the 3,975 movies CinemaScore has polled as of this taping, almost 70% have scored a B or above. That's good news. And considering that some of the movies above the B- danger zone rating include divisive films like Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, Suicide Squad, and, well, every Transformers film ever made, the movies that scored B- or lower must be real dogs, right? Well, most of the time. About 90% of the movies that have scored B- or below on CinemaScore were indeed both critical and audience failures, as judged by average ratings from both groups on Rotten Tomatoes. However, about 10% are films that both audiences and critics responded positively to. And these include awards contenders like The Wolf of Wall Street, Her, Boogie Nights, and Adaptation, fan favorites like Austin Powers, The Cabin in the Woods, Zoolander, and South Park: Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, And even films that comprise what many consider to be part of the modern canon, like Fight Club, Magnolia, The Royal Tenenbaums, and American Psycho. And that leaves a lot of people asking, how did these movies score so low? And does that make CinemaScore completely unreliable? I reached out to CinemaScore with that exact question and heard back from Harold Mintz, who runs the company with his father, the founder, Ed Mintz. Harold Mintz told me, quote, "If the fans on opening night give the movie a below average grade, B- and lower, the reason is they didn't like the film. The people who attended on opening night either were the wrong audience, marketing, or the movie wasn't well received because it wasn't what the audience expected, or again, wasn't good." That distinction, I believe, is key to understanding what CinemaScore is telling us and what the numbers really mean. Remember, CinemaScore was founded on the idea of audience expectations, and that's exactly what they measure. Polling is conducted on opening night, meaning that audiences have come to the theater with certain expectations in mind. How do Transformers movies consistently get high cinema scores? Well, opening night audiences are most likely huge Transformers fans, and they get pretty much what they expected. When you look deeper at movies that scored low but ended up with high marks from audiences and critics, you can see how audience expectation may have affected the results. How did Punch Drunk Love end up with a D+? Well, how many Adam Sandler fans showed up on opening night expecting an avant-garde metaphorical meditation on love? Why did Stanley Kubrick's final film, Eyes Wide Shut, the lowest ever scoring film to be rated positively by critics and fans, get a D-? How many people showed up to see Tom Cruise's latest drama only to get a heavy dose of Kubrick? How many Cruise fans showed up to Magnolia only to find frogs falling from the sky? How many Leonardo DiCaprio fans were taken off guard by Shutter Island, which scored a C+? Almost every case of a low cinema score paired with a high audience and critical rating involves a big star in an unconventional role, an offbeat film like Drive that's been marketed to a large audience, or a genre film like Starship Troopers that just doesn't fit the mold. In each case, subversion of audience expectation is involved, and it's one indicator that CinemaScore doesn't always equal quality. In fact, it's really intended as a tool that helps studios analyze how well their movie was marketed and what its box office prospects might be going forward. Over the years, CinemaScore has proven eerily accurate at gauging what a film's box office future is, given the reaction of the opening night audience. Based on a movie's grade, it's now fairly easy for them to determine how much a movie will make based on its opening weekend. This number is called a multiplier, and here's how it works. Based on CinemaScore's data, movies that receive, let's say, an A- CinemaScore generally make about 3.5 times its opening weekend box office. So if a movie opens to $100 million with an A- score, CinemaScore's projection would be a final gross around $350 million, or 3.5 times the opening weekend gross. Now, this has proven true for movies like 22 Jump Street, which scored an A- and finished with a 3.3 multiplier, End of Watch, which scored an A- and ended with a 3.1 multiplier, and Star Wars Episode 3, which scored an A- and ended right on the nose with a 3.5 multiplier. As the CinemaScore goes down, so does the multiplier. So a movie that gets an A+ CinemaScore generally makes 4.8 times what it grosses on its opening weekend. But a movie that gets an F CinemaScore generally struggles just to double its opening weekend gross. When looking at CinemaScore, it's critical to remember that it's a judge of finance as much as it's a judge of quality. Yes, bad movies will get bad scores, and good movies will get good scores, but often there's a lot more to it than that. Is it frustrating that Annihilation, a critically acclaimed and ambitious piece of visionary science fiction, got the same CinemaScore, a C, as Superman 4, The Quest for Peace? As a movie fan, yes. Yes, it is. But when you consider that movies that get a C CinemaScore generally do 2.5 times their opening weekend, and that both Annihilation and Superman 4 easily fell within that range with a 2.9 and 2.7 multiple respectively, you start to see that, as with most things, the real story is much deeper than it appears. While CinemaScore is often a measure of quality, it is more often a measure of expectations. And this is not a characterization that CinemaScore runs from. As Harold Mintz also told us when we reached out for comment, quote, "CinemaScore only asks the most enthusiastic fans on opening night what they thought. I don't have all the answers as to why a film gets a certain grade, but demographics play a part, genres play a part, and so does studio marketing. CinemaScore only offers a tool to help those that don't go opening night to consider before buying a ticket." And that's the key here. Just like reviews, a movie's CinemaScore is a tool, a consumer guide that's a reflection of randomly selected general audiences on a film's opening night, used as a marketing analysis tool by studios to help maximize their profits and assess a film's financial future, and intended by the company to be a snapshot of what the hardcore fan base of a franchise, genre, or actor thought of a film based on their expectations. It may be a handy tool, but nothing can replace the most reliable and personal resource of all, your own opinion.